Hello, everyone, and welcome to the BMA Life. Today, we will be kicking off a new series of podcasts where we'll be highlighting medical device startups. And today, we have an amazing first guest. This is Dr. Richard Ricci, and he is a dental professional during the day and a CubeClick founder during the day and night, probably sometimes as well. So, thank you, Richard, so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me, Mary.
Of course. And the topics that we'll be covering today are actually pretty interesting. We'll be talking a little bit about CubeClick and what kind of product you're developing. Then we'll dive a little bit into your background, how you got started, and eventually we'll be diving into the legal world of startups, which involves a lot of patents. So that'll be really fun, really good knowledge to share. So thank you, Richard, again so much for being willing to share this knowledge with us.
Terrific. Let me share as much as I can.
Sounds good. Okay, so the first question is, who is CubeClick? Like, what kind of product are you developing? Could you tell us a little bit more about your company?
Well, CubeClick is a medical image device company. We specialize in AI processing of dental images, and it's a field that has not really been penetrated yet. I mean, it's routinely medical imaging processing is done in medicine, but just hasn't reached the dentistry. So we're gonna make a change here, I hope.
Yeah, no, of course. And you are a dental professional yourself, so it kind of just makes sense that you started this. So could you tell me a little bit about, how you came from practicing dentistry to like thinking, you know what, I kind of want to start this. Like what happened there to make you do that?
I was kind of surprised with my medical image software that we currently have. Uh, One of my patients said to me one day, he says, your life must be so much easier now that the computer does all the work for you. And I kind of looked at them with this blank stare. I'm like, no, we're still doing it the way it was done in 1896. Then they used to take an x-ray. It took 15 minutes to take an x-ray, if you can believe that. And they would look at it in a light box. Well, we're still looking at it in a light box on a computer monitor. The image quality is better, and we have different tools for, in contrast and zooming in, but no AI has ever been applied to dental image analysis.
Mm-hmm. So you
Okay.
just did you have to like did you start doing it alone? Did you think of getting co-founders? Like what were your next steps in thinking, okay, there's a need for this? And what motivated you to really start it? Because I think, seeing medical technologies all the time, I'm like, oh yeah, it would be nice if we had this, it would be nice if we had that. But what pushed you to like think, okay, I'm going to do this, like I'm going to start this?
Well, it didn't quite start out that way. I initially was discussing this with Dr. Cambria, who I work with in Manhattan. We're both general dentists. And, she has a very strong background in computer coding, and I have a
Okay.
strong background in legal, dental legal. And we both realized this is long overdue. And then so we started, exploring this, we started discussing this with medical radiologists, and we started looking, you know, what other patents might be out there. Is this anyone, penetrating this field? And we were surprised to find out no one has even looked into this area.
Wow.
So, I sat down with a patent attorney, and we started talking this out. And, apparently even when they would do their searches, and they said, there's just not a lot of penetration here. It's pretty open. So then we started gaining some traction with it. And that's how CubeClick, sort of got going.
That is really awesome. And I was mentioning to you earlier that I'm very unfamiliar with patents. And I know, when I used to work in regulatory affairs, like it was weird to see a patent, or at least like they wouldn't just share it with us that openly. So to see yours for the first time, I was like, oh wow, this is what a patent looks like. And so yeah, what made you know right away, okay, we need a patent? Like, did you just know that that was the route you should take?
You know, with a small company, you don't have the resources, you know, of a large public company. You just don't have any room for mistake, and you don't have really any assets. It seemed to me, I have a few other patients that have taken companies public, and one of the things that enabled them to, you know, show, you know, assets of a company was a patent portfolio. And so, you know, after we got our first patent, uh, we realized we had really only two choices at this point: either sell the patent or move forward. And we really weren't anticipating of actually, you know, seeing this through. But then we just started to realize the only people that can actually see an AI, you know, dental imaging analysis, you know, platform developed properly are dentists. You know, I've seen too many times, you know, medical devices developed by people that have no medical background. And, you know, it's, if you would have spoke to the professional first, they would have said it needs to be designed this way. I can't use this in the operating, or I can't use this on the software. So, you know, it made sense for us, being a small startup, to develop a patent portfolio. We were looked at a little differently when having this conversation. You know, to be completely honest, you know, a lot of people will say, because technology changes so fast, why are you going in the direction of getting patents? Because what's relevant today might not be relevant tomorrow. That's a personal decision. You know,
Mm.
that has to come between you and your team. And, you know, but I, from a medical device point of view, if you have competitors who do have patents, you can learn how to improve very quickly on their patents by reading them first. So this is a suggestion to others who are considering this route. Okay.
Yeah, no, that I think that's great. And you mentioned being a startup and how having patents helps you because startups typically don't have funding, so they need to get investors and they need to show something to the investors, right? Something that's valuable. But I guess I really have no idea, like, how expensive are patents? Like, does someone starting a startup, like, do they need like a substantial amount of like money to be able to file a patent?
What I would suggest in all this, if you're going to go down this path, patents can be a little on the expensive side. So the more you understand about patents, the more you can save. And every dollar counts as a startup for medical device. You do not have resources to make mistakes. Personally, the first thing I would suggest doing is, if you're just kicking the idea around and it's still on the couch, you know, you guys are just kind of sitting around and you're talking about it together, is definitely get something called a provisional patent. That's very inexpensive and it gives you patent protection for 1 year. You can file this yourself online without an attorney. There's a really good video that I'd like you to attach to this by a really bright guy. I just want to make sure. I just want to give his right name over here. Cliff Weifman. You know, he shows how you can do this yourself very inexpensively, and that gives you 1 year of protection. And this is normally, you know, the precursor before you make a real patent afterwards. But you're sort of able to inexpensively to be able to go to an investor and say, hey, look, we got this together already. And you can make a couple of these for under $100. I think Cliff does it for $65. Uh, and it just gives you something in your deck. You know, you're not just, you know, you're not just talking pie in the sky. You sound like you're getting it together. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And because I know we were having this conversation today, yesterday I actually watched a webinar on medical device patents. So I got a little bit familiar with like the language and stuff, and it sounded like a provisional patent is sort of like a pre-patent, if you would, like, and you can modify
Yes.
that like throughout that year, right? Like you can make changes to it.
You can't make changes to it, but you can use it for the next step. First of all, it gets your
Okay.
start date. So, you know, suppose today is, you know, July 9th. All right, we can make this, yeah, today's
Yeah.
July. We can make your provisional patent start today. And you don't have to file the real one for 1 year from now. But in
Okay.
case anyone else is kind of making something, you have protection from this point forward because you will cite this provisional in your non-provisional patent in the future. It just, a start date is very important. He who makes it first wins. You
Mm,
know, Alexander Graham's telephone patent was hours before another guy.
mm.
He got the patent hours.
Y- Yeah. Okay. Yeah. They also mentioned that it's really whoever filed first that gets it. So I think
That's how
provisional
it works.
patents, yeah, it sounds like a really good tool to take advantage of,
And
if you really want.
inexpensive.
Yeah.
Inexpensive. This is great for the small guy who doesn't have money behind him. Fantastic.
Yeah. And so you mentioned like doing it online yourself. When would you recommend, like, did you always do it online by yourself, or did you eventually get an attorney, or what would you recommend in general?
Initially, I took the hard road, and I can comfortably say I've made every mistake twice. Okay, so maybe if I'd like to share with everyone that you don't have to make the same mistakes I made. If it seems too intimidating to get the provisional one yourself, you can online get, a relatively inexpensive paralegal to make you a provisional one for under $500. If it's, if the lingo is just too intense on you. Uh, you can also, if you want to transition to a non-provisional, which is the real deal, you can also get an online one for $1,500 to $2,000. I used thoughts to paper. It worked out, fine for me for a couple of patents. We have a lot of patents. Uh, you can also, my first patent I filed, I went through the, expense of hiring a private attorney. And that can run you anywhere now into between $7,000 and $10,000. It's
Wow.
going to get a little pricey. I definitely recommend when it comes to these patents, always get a fixed fee because the costs can get out of control very, very fast. Also, a fixed fee gives you the opportunity to learn how it's actually done, right? Because you can ask the attorney or the paralegal a lot of questions along the line. And ultimately, it's your patent. It's like signing your income tax return. Just because the accountant put it together, that doesn't mean it's legal. You're ultimately responsible for that return. No one's going to take the heat for you.
Yeah. That yeah, totally agree. And we're talking a lot about patents, but for people who are not really familiar with what a patent even is, like, what would you say the structure of it is, more or less? Like, is there like a defined structure to it? I know you mentioned like the blueprint of it.
They look so intimidating. They really do. I have to, honestly, I got to share with you again, every mistake twice. The first couple of patents I was like, I couldn't understand a damn thing they were writing. It was just so over the top. And after a while, I dissected it and I figured it out. It's really not that intense. They're usually about 100 pages long. They always start off with an abstract. If you're an expert in your field, I'm a dentist, so I kind of understand dental terminology better than most. I can begin to read this a little better than perhaps a mechanical engineering patent that I don't understand.
Mhm.
The next usually goes into something called an introduction. Easy enough just to kind of get, and then you go into something called the specification. Again, that's going to run, 70 pages. There'll be some diagrams in there, and it always ends with something called claims. So honestly, the first 95 pages mean nothing. And that's like the most intimidating part of all this, because you think, oh my God, what is this? The only thing that matters are the claims at the end. That's it. All right. And normally the patent office gives you 20 claims at the end. And that's what your device really counts. The scary part about the claims, you can't read those either. Okay, now I'm going to explain why you can't read these claims, because they do this intentionally, these guys. The patent office says you're only allowed one line per claim, one sentence.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so patent attorneys found this way to make a sentence can go on for pages with semicolons and colons. I know myself, one of my patents, catch this, one claim goes on for 4.5 pages.
Wow, that's insane.
Uh, so my suggestion when looking at your competitors' patents, which is a really smart idea to do if you're making a medical device, take that claim, do a cut and paste, put it in Word, and every place you see a colon and a semicolon, put a space and a line between it. Pretend it's a sentence. Now try to read it. It'll make complete sense.
Yeah, no, that makes total sense. And that's so funny that, one claim could be more than 4 pages. And, you mentioned like copying it off like a competitor and pasting it. Like, I thought that's what patents are meant to protect, like not copying claims or claim something separate.
I'm just saying that for you to understand.
Okay.
Take your competitors' complaints. Or don't ever plagiarize. That's the
Okay, got
patent
it.
office. They've got search software like you can't believe. They will find things so fast. I can't emphasize that enough. Never plagiarize another patent. Use the idea and expand on it.
Okay.
There's nothing wrong with doing that.
Okay,
But
got
it's
it.
just so I want to share how to take it, the intimidation of reading these things away.
Mhm.
It's really not as hard as they make it out. Just every semicolon, every colon, make it a separate sentence. Now read it. It makes sense.
Okay.
Okay.
Got it. Yeah. And so is 20, like, do you have to have 20 claims or is that the
No,
limit?
you can actually have more. You have to pay the patent office more to have more than 20. Some people
Okay.
do, but you should be able to nail it in 20. But in that, they have it broken down to, two different types of claims. And this is important because a lot of people try to not really represent your patent properly who are writing this, right? So this is a very important concept. You get 3 independent claims, which really state what your medical device is. The independent claims will always start with something like a system or a method. In my case, a dental image, comma, comprising, semicolon, and then a list of everything that goes with it. You get 3 of those, all right? Very important. Those are your heavy hitters, and those are called independent claims. Then you get the dependent claims that attach to that. So, you can say, it's you can say, a dependent claim, whereas the image is obtained from an X-ray unit.
Mhm.
So make sure that whoever is writing your patent, that you get your 3 independent claims and your 17 dependent claims. A lot of online patent people who put together these things give you 1. And if you don't know the difference, it's on you.
Yeah.
I hate to say it like that. You have to be an informed consumer, and every dollar counts for small medical device companies. I just want to, avoid a couple of pitfalls here for folks. Okay.
Yeah. No, yeah, that's great advice. And you mentioned the patent office, and that's actually a question that I still have unanswered in my head. Like I haven't looked it up, but is that like like the US government has one patent office or are there several you could go to? How does it work?
There's one patent office, and normally when you're non-provisional, the real deal patent is submitted, you'll wait about 30 months for it to be reviewed. Personally, if you're in tech, and usually most medical devices tech, you can't wait that long. So I would ask for an expedited filing. Basically, because we file these things ourselves, patents, in addition to with attorneys, it's one box that gets checked
Okay.
and an additional fee of $1,000. I think that's worth every penny to a small company. If you have a patent attorney, he's probably going to charge another $1,000 to check this box for you, but he or she knows where the box is. And you make one wrong mistake with on the patent office website, you sink it. There's no wiggle room with these guys. It's a government. They're very structured. It has to be done a certain way. But an expedited filing, even if you get an online service, maybe they'll charge you the $500 to do the expedited filing. I highly recommend it.
Okay. And like how much time do you save by doing that? More or less.
The expedited, they'll within 6 months of patent examiner will examine it.
Oh wow.
So
Okay.
that's a big difference. That's a big difference because all of a sudden, if you have an awarded patent in 6 months, you've got something to say what your medical device is and what, what potentially your company is.
Okay, no,
Okay.
that's great. And also, I think just for anyone who may be viewing this and is not familiar with patents, they protect you for 20 years, right?
Yes. Yeah. You get 20 years of protection under your patents.
Okay, great. No, those are all great tips and advice. Um, I guess the next topic we wanted to cover is jumping outside of patents. Like you mentioned, like the importance of incorporating as an LLC or C Corp. Could you tell us
Yeah.
a little bit about that? Like what route did you choose and why would you prefer one versus the other? Or I
Well,
guess
how
either or.
this is a great question, and this a lot of it has to come from what's right for that individual investors or individual founders. First, hey, I'm not an attorney, right? Let's get this straight. I'm just going to tell you what I did. I don't want anyone telling me how I changed their world in any sense because they followed what I did. I'm just going to say what I think you should do. Or what worked for us, not what you should do. I think what worked for us.
Yes.
First things first, most medical devices are going to have huge losses in the beginning. So if you don't have income to set that loss off against, you might want to consider a pass-through corporation like an LLC or an S Corp. You can discuss this with your accounting professional. Another cheap way to do it, in my opinion, is go to TurboTax, take your last year's tax return, and make a simulation of I have an LLC and put expenses through that would be perhaps your medical device company. Expenses could be rent, computer technology, travel time, and see how that would work out. See if it works out well for you or not. If you're going to have immediate investors, you might want to consider going the C Corp. A C Corp is more what a public company goes with. A lot of companies, choose a C Corp because it's a format that works very well, very quickly. It's very structured. However, it's not a pass-through corporation. You can't deduct it off of your returns. You have to see what's right for you. You can't just because I formed a C Corp doesn't mean you got to form a C Corp.
Yeah, no, that totally makes sense. And I think it's just good for people to, listen to this and start considering it because sometimes you might not even think about it. And then the next point I have here is the importance of reading and understanding all contracts. So is that like with the attorney, with the patent office, like with everyone?
With everyone. This is, I have a fair amount of legal background on top of being a dentist. And, I've consulted on many cases, and I can't tell you the number of times I've seen a contract changed, in the final draft that the other attorney didn't read and the client just signed. And they got themselves into, a whole legal battle because that other attorney didn't read the final draft. You read your contracts and you understand your contracts and don't think twice about asking for an explanation. It's on you. You have to accept this responsibility, be it a patent, be it a lease for your office. Understand what you're signing. It's like a tax return. This one's on you. Okay.
Yeah, no, that's a great example. And then another kind of intellectual property is trademarks. And does CubeClick have any trademarks, and why would you recommend them?
Well, on CubeClick, we have 5 trademarks. Our platform is SmileDX. I think a trademark, if you have a catchy name that you like, is a smart idea to get one. You can do this online pretty inexpensively, probably for under $500. There are lots of companies out there that can get your trademark pretty quickly. You can do it yourself too. We've done our own. It's involved. It really is. I would think for the $300 to $500 to have someone else do it, just have someone else do it. It's pretty involved. It's just as involved as a patent. And if you don't have a catchy trademark, oh well, I mean, we have several several trademarks that are not that catchy. Oh, well, it wasn't that big of a setback to have, just in case we
Mhm,
wanted to do it. And I think actually in the medical device process, as you're developing your device, you might see different names that you want to call it.
mhm.
So don't be afraid to change the name. That's, it's not something horrible to do that. It's perfectly fine. Okay.
Yeah, no, totally. And I guess the last thing is just jumping into the regulatory affairs world, which is, I think it's kind of similar to, the legal side with patents, but something that the guy mentioned in the webinar that I watched yesterday was that just because you receive your patent, it doesn't give you the right to practice your patent. So in the
Mhm.
case of medical devices, someone might be confused and think, oh, I got a patent for my device, I can now design it and sell it. But that's not really the case. You still have to go through FDA regulations in the US. So yeah, how is that process for you? Were you like, did you already know, like, oh yeah, I need to file for a 510K, or how was that process for you?
I was, in anything, watch carefully other people's mistakes. Y- Much better to watch their mistakes than you make those mistakes. I saw, some smart people that, got patents for a medical device, and I thought it was a pretty smart device, and they thought they were going to rock and roll with this. All of a sudden, to find out they didn't have FDA approval of it,
Mm.
so all that energy and money that they put into building this thing was completely worthless. And I learned from their mistake not to do this one. So I'm sharing this with anyone who's like watching this. Your medical device from day one, before you even start building this thing, you need to have an amazing FDA team on your side. When I initially, I found you on YouTube, uh, and I got, shot over to Medical Device Academy. One of the things, that you guys, the first things you told me, because we didn't even pull together a computer vision team yet. If the people you're interviewing do not know what an IEC 62304 is, run. Those were the exact words that were given to me. Now, those were some of the wisest things that were ever said to me, because I could have spent a huge amount of money building Smile
Mhm.
DX, only to find out there's no way on earth this is ever going to pass FDA approval. And
Yeah.
I'm going to tell you, I spoke with so many software engineers who said, no problem, we do this all the time. And as soon as I asked that question, this is so you can see them look at their shoes. Uh, uh, I.e. what? I see what? Yeah, we do that. We do that all the time. They're full of it. So I can't emphasize to anyone watching this who's serious about a medical device. Step one, find a medical device team, tell them what you want to do, because they're going to tell you things about regulatory compliance that you have no way you could possibly know. You just can't. And your team is so important on this. Even before you build your project, have your FDA team in place. I can't emphasize this enough.
Yeah, no, you're totally right, because we in my previous job like had a lot of companies come to us. They had already built everything, and then you
Mhm.
had to like backtrack and like try to make it fit with FDA regulations, and it's just hard. Like it's better if you start following it from the beginning. So you made the right
Absolutely.
decision. Like your team was wonderful. So yeah, it was a breeze working with you.
We were lucky. Long story short, we were lucky because you can't afford to make those mistakes. You
Mhm.
don't have the resources of a large corporation behind you, that takes forever to get anything done. You have to make sharp, quick decisions that make sense. An FDA team that you trust is it.
Yeah. Totally. Okay. Well, we're nearing the end. And one of the next things I would like to cover is like I have a couple of questions from some of our followers to
Okay.
you. So the first one is, what we kind of already covered it, but the question is, what motivated you to found CubeClick?
Well, after we got our first patent, we were like so impressed with ourselves. And it was either that one, either sell the patent or become serious. And then we decided the correct thing, was to become serious and incorporate. And we formed a C corporation in Delaware, which is where most companies that tend to have shareholders form their corporations.
Oh,
So
and
we found the
why is
CubeClick.
that? Yeah, why do most companies incorporate there? Are they
Uh,
just very easy?
Again, I'm not an attorney, but I understand from talking to my very smart attorney patients that the reason most companies incorporate there is that they have so much precedence with legal corporate law that it enables cases to go through very, very fast. Should you be in litigation, and it also enables arbitration to be decided very, very fast without having huge expenses. So it makes a lot more sense to be incorporated in Delaware. Is my understanding of the situation.
Okay, that's good to know, definitely. And then the next question is, what is one thing you know now that you wish you would have known when you first started?
Yeah. This one is a mistake on my part. Get financing as soon as possible. It really is. A lot of times medical device people, they don't want to sell out shares of their company early because they don't feel they, got it to the value that they wanted. They don't have all the patents in place. They don't have the prototypes in place. You know, a good deal today is better than a great deal tomorrow because market conditions change very, very quickly. And where funding might be very fluid at one point, it's not very fluid at other points. So that would really be my most important. And if you're going to do a medical device, definitely have a serious FDA team in place with you right from the beginning. You have to trust these people.
Yeah, awesome. Well, we're definitely at the end now. Thank you, Richard, so much for joining us. But before I let you go, I would like to ask you if you have any last words of advice for like young people or like people that have already been working in the medical device industry for a while or are medical professionals, really anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur and found a medical device startup. What would be like your last words of advice for them?
Don't take no for an answer. If you really want to do this and you want to see this through, just look at yourself in the mirror and don't take no for an answer and make it happen. Okay?
That's great advice. Yes, no, thank you so much, Richard.
You're so welcome. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Well, we'll say goodbye to the viewers. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Take care. Bye.